田畑、二人の秘密な。
それは思わず勘違いした私には少女漫画のような甘酸っぱせっかく話しかけてもらえた時もコミュ障を発動させ挙動ってしまいし
In the world of romantic storytelling, there are countless tales about perfect couples, dazzling beauty, and characters who seem to glide through life with a natural charm. But sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that look directly at insecurity, loneliness, and the quiet hope that lives inside people who feel invisible. That emotional core sits at the heart of Busu ni Hanataba wo, a heartfelt romantic story created by manga artist Roku Sakura. Rather than focusing on glamorous protagonists, the narrative builds its entire emotional landscape around a girl who believes she is the opposite of beautiful and whose biggest struggle is simply learning that she deserves kindness and love like anyone else. The story unfolds in an ordinary Japanese high school, the kind of place where daily routines, friendships, and subtle social hierarchies shape the emotional lives of teenagers. Among the students is a girl named Hana Tabata. Her name, ironically, includes the word flower, yet she feels like she is the farthest thing from one. Hana is convinced she is unattractive, awkward, and fundamentally out of place among her classmates. While other girls gossip about crushes, fashion, and romance, Hana quietly keeps her distance from those conversations. She has already convinced herself that those experiences belong to other people, not someone like her. Hana's life revolves around small, private routines that help her avoid attention. She wakes up early and goes to school before most students arrive, allowing her to move through the hallways without being seen. Her mornings often begin in the classroom alone, where she spends time arranging flowers left behind from school activities. In those quiet moments, she imagines romantic scenes like the ones she reads about in shoujo manga. In her mind, she sometimes plays the role of a beautiful heroine surrounded by affection and admiration. But the moment the day begins and other students arrive, that fantasy fades and she retreats back into the role she believes she was born to play, the plain, forgettable girl in the background. The emotional tone of the story begins to shift one morning when Hana's peaceful routine is unexpectedly interrupted. A classmate named Yousuke Ueno arrives early and catches her during one of her private fantasy moments. For Hana, this is an absolute nightmare. In her mind, she has just been exposed at her most embarrassing, pretending to be something she believes she could never actually be. She expects laughter, ridicule, or awkward gossip to spread throughout the class. But what happens instead becomes the emotional turning point that drives the entire story forward. Ueno does not mock her. He does not treat her like someone strange or pathetic. Instead, he responds with simple kindness and curiosity. To Hana, this reaction feels almost unbelievable. She cannot understand why someone as bright, friendly, and socially comfortable as Ueno would interact with her so casually. In her worldview, people like him exist in a completely different universe from people like her. This dynamic creates the central tension of the narrative. Hana's greatest obstacle is not the opinions of others, but the deep-rooted belief that she is unworthy of affection. Every interaction she has with Ueno becomes filtered through this insecurity. When he smiles at her, she assumes he's just being polite. When he speaks to her, she suspects he is secretly laughing at her. When he goes out of his way to help her, she wonders if it's some kind of joke she simply doesn't understand. Meanwhile, Ueno continues behaving with genuine warmth, seemingly unaware of the emotional storm inside Hana's mind. He treats her like a normal classmate and gradually becomes interested in the small details of her personality. He notices that she cares about flowers, that she quietly helps maintain the classroom environment, and that she has a surprisingly vivid imagination. These little observations slowly transform the way he sees her, but more importantly, they begin challenging the rigid self-image Hana has built over the years. One of the most interesting aspects of the story is how it handles the concept of beauty and perception. Hana has grown up absorbing countless messages about what makes someone attractive or lovable. Because she does not fit those standards, she assumes she has already lost the game before it even begins. The narrative gently questions that belief by showing how beauty can exist in kindness, dedication, sincerity, and the small habits that reveal someone's character. As Hana and Ueno spend more time around each other, the story begins exploring the awkward and often hilarious misunderstandings that come from Hana's extreme self-consciousness. A simple compliment from Ueno can send her spiraling into panic, convinced that he must be teasing her. A casual conversation can leave her analyzing every word for hidden meaning. These moments create a mix of comedy and emotional vulnerability that gives the story its distinctive charm. The high school setting also introduces a wider group of classmates who slowly become part of Hana's world. At first, she views everyone with suspicion, assuming that they must be judging her appearance or laughing behind her back. However, as the story progresses, it becomes clear that many of these fears exist only in her imagination. Some classmates are curious about her quiet personality. Others admire her dedication to small responsibilities around the school. Gradually, Hana begins to realize that she may have misjudged how others perceive her. Another key theme woven throughout the narrative is the contrast between internal and external identity. Inside her mind, Hana is full of dramatic romantic fantasies and emotional sensitivity. She is capable of imagining elaborate scenes filled with beauty and affection. Yet on the outside, she presents herself as someone who wants to disappear. This gap between her inner world and her outward behavior creates both comedic situations and deeply touching moments as she slowly learns to express herself more openly. Ueno's role in another fascinating element is how humor is used to balance the emotional themes. Hana's imagination often exaggerates situations to absurd levels. A minor misunderstanding can turn into a full dramatic fantasy in her mind, complete with imagined reactions from classmates or tragic romantic scenarios. These exaggerated inner monologues add comedic energy while also illustrating just how intensely she experiences social anxiety. The supporting characters also contribute to the atmosphere of the story. Some classmates begin to notice Hana's interactions with Ueno and react with curiosity or playful teasing. Others slowly become friends who appreciate her sincerity. These relationships help expand Hana's world beyond the narrow self-image she once believed defined her entire identity. Throughout the story, flowers continue appearing as a recurring motif. They represent growth, fragility, and the quiet beauty that can exist in unexpected places. Just as flowers require patience and care to bloom, Hana's confidence develops gradually through repeated experiences of acceptance and understanding. Each small step forward becomes another petal unfolding. The emotional appeal of the narrative lies in its relatability. Many people have experienced moments of feeling out of place or convinced that they do not measure up to others. By presenting a protagonist who openly struggles with those feelings, the story invites viewers or readers to reflect on their own perceptions of self-worth. Hana's journey becomes a reminder that the harshest judgments we face are often the ones we place on ourselves. As the relationship between Hana and Ueno continues evolving, the tone shifts from simple curiosity to something deeper and more emotionally complex. Their conversations become more personal. Their awareness of each other's presence grows stronger. Even the smallest gestures start carrying new meaning. For Hana, this development is both exciting and terrifying because it challenges the narrative she has believed about her entire life. Yet that tension is exactly what makes the story resonate. Instead of presenting love as a sudden miracle, it shows how connection can grow through patience, empathy, and shared experiences. Ueno does not fall in love with an idealized version of Hana. He becomes interested in the real person she is, including her awkwardness, her imagination, and her quiet determination. By the time the story reaches its emotional high points, the audience realizes that the real transformation has nothing to do with physical appearance. The most important change is Hana's gradual ability to see herself through a different lens. She begins noticing that her presence can bring warmth to others. She realizes that her kindness and sincerity have value. Most importantly, she starts understanding that she deserves to stand in the same sunlight as everyone else. In that sense, the bouquet in the title becomes a metaphor not just for beauty, but for recognition. A bouquet is something offered to celebrate someone, to acknowledge their presence and importance. For Hana, receiving that symbolic bouquet means accepting the possibility that she is not invisible after all. The story ultimately becomes a gentle exploration of how people grow when they are treated with patience and respect. It shows how a single act of kindness can ripple outward, gradually changing the way someone sees themselves and the world around them. Through humor, awkwardness, and heartfelt moments, the narrative builds a portrait of a girl discovering that the qualities she once tried to hide might actually be the very things that make her special. By focusing on the emotional interior of a character who believes she is undeserving of love, the story offers a refreshing alternative to typical romantic narratives. It reminds audiences that beauty is not limited to surface appearances, and that confidence often blooms slowly, like a flower that has been waiting quietly for the right season. In the end, the emotional message resonates long after the story concludes. Sometimes the most meaningful love stories are not about dramatic confessions or grand gestures, but about learning to accept a simple truth, that even someone who feels like the ugly girl in the corner of the classroom can hold an entire bouquet of hidden beauty within her heart.